Good afternoon. Good day, good morning. I don't know. To everybody. This is another yet episode of me trying to show you some things in JavaScript, and I do hope that it's going to be something worthwhile for you to learn one or two things from. And today, I just want us to learn about objects. We're going to be looking at like the basics of objects, right? Looking at some of the cool things that like we have in objects. Basically, that's what we're going to be looking at today. So if anybody's on the stream, whether on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, you can just give me a hi or hello in the comments so that I know that I have people alongside me. I'm not the only person here. And yeah, I'm excited to show you how certain things work in JavaScript. So far, we've had a couple of episodes around the basics of JavaScript, right? Um, creating variables and all the basic stuff around variables, mathematical calculations, comparison, and look at this man. Look at who I have on LinkedIn. Yinka, good to see you. Ah, oh my God. I just tried to stream to LinkedIn for the first time today, so I don't know how it looks, how it feels, but thank you for joining, Yinka. Um, I mean, I'm just trying to teach JavaScript, like I've always loved to do. JavaScript is my long-term body, and I'm just trying to show Stanley, what's up? How are you? I got your message, but I've not had time to really read it to respond. But I will read it to respond. But I like the initiative. I like the idea. When I saw your message, I was also even thinking about bringing that old project into something like Next.js would have been totally awesome. But I mean, it's something that we can always talk about later. So for those who are just listening for the first time, right? I do talk about JavaScript on Friday, right, where I just talk about introduction to JavaScript. Most importantly, I use like my favorite JavaScript material in the world, which is javascript.info, right, to teach JavaScript such that everybody can really understand so much more about JavaScript. And on Saturday, around the same time, right, I talk about React and Next.js, right? So yeah, it's just a way of me again trying to see how I can help as many persons. And eventually it's not just about the teaching, it's just about the learning. I look forward to so the same thing for you too, boss. I got your message. By now I've not responded to your message as well. But I love your idea. I love all the projects you worked on, but I've not really checked it one after the other. But I'm one by one. But hopefully, I'll check it. Thank you for your support. I really do appreciate, and I like that you're putting your learning into projects. So that's the beautiful thing I like about some of my students. You building things. The world is to the builders. Like it's only people who build that can really quickly show the world what they are capable of doing. And since JavaScript is very powerful enough, right, we can always build as many things as possible, and show the world what we can do. I do appreciate your efforts. I hope that you'll get good jobs, right, very soon that befits all the efforts that you put it into learning. Your constant showing up. Yeah, I'm not saying like your constant showing up even here, right? Which is not compulsory for you guys to show up. Is something I really appreciate as well. Thank you so much for the support. Yeah, that being said, we can always move into the major thing that we are supposed to do today. Um, Objects are very complicated, and they are also like they can be very easy depending on depending on your foundation, depending on what you how you're grounded in the basics of what objects looks like. But I think I like to emphasize that if you're really going to do well as a JavaScript engineer, you want to understand the basics of objects properly and how to really manipulate objects, because it is one of the most important data structure that we use often in JavaScript, right? Most of the things we do revolve around objects. So I hope I can do well to explain. Again, if you want to have an idea of what I am using, so again, I am using javascript.info, right? I'm using javascript.info, and is out here, right? I've talked about this introduction part. I've talked about these JavaScript fundamentals. I've talked about the code quality part as well. And I am talking about objects. And when you look at objects, we have just, objects in itself, right? Then we have like, object references and, copying. How do we copy objects, right? So basically, the major thing around copying objects is there are two major ways to copy. You can do like a shallow copying, or you can do a deep copying. And we also have something about garbage collection. That is, how does JavaScript clean up all the variables that we have used, all the objects that you've declared that we're not using anymore. And then inside of object, there is something we call this, right? So what does this means, right? Inside of objects. Then we also talk about the constructor, right? What is constructor? How does constructor and object relate together? And we'll also be looking at optional chaining, right? A particular way to save us from struggle of objects and of just having some common error that people commonly run into when you're working with objects. I also will try to see if we can touch on symbols and understand how to convert objects to primitive values, right? So, is it possible for us to convert object to primitive, right? So, we'll be looking at that as well. So, basically, this is the plan for today. I'm thinking I should be making slides for this stream. I'm still thinking about I'm still battling in my head, but I don't want it to be, obviously the slides will not be wordy. The slides will be more the slides should be more like, more of picture of basic declarations and some cool points that I think I want to talk about. But I've not thought about it too much, but I'm just I'm hoping that when I think about it, I can really make a decision about whether I should come with slides or not. Because again, it's about coming with enough material to help everybody to understand JS. So this is the plan for today. So let's get the ball rolling, right? Um this is something that you definitely, if you have been along JavaScript for a while now, you understand that we can declare with some keyword. There's some common keywords that we can use to run some declaration. For example, let keyword allow us to declare, right? Const allow us to declare, var allow us to declare. These are keywords in JavaScript that allow us to declare variables, right? So if you want to declare an object as well, right, you can declare with the name of the object, right? You have your assignment sign, right? And then you have these curly brackets. So the curly brackets here, they would signify what the literal declaration of object. Again, the curly bracket here this signifies the literal declaration of what? Of objects. So how do I mean, or what do I mean by literal? So it just means, so this can be reproduced by, say we say something like this, object 2 equals to new object, and we can always put name equals to a day here. So this is the using the object constructor, right, to declare the same thing, right? But the interesting thing here is that um the interesting thing is both of them are objects. That's just the interesting thing. Both are objects, but the way we declare them is what? We declare this using the object constructor itself, right? The first one was declared using the literal. That is, we just literally declared something, and the major showing here is using these curly brackets to declare things here. So another thing, right, that we should also get used to here is that you can have a key and a value, right? You can have a key and what? A value. So name is a key, right, that we can use to access this value. So again, in this manner, right, you can also have what? You can have age, and it has this value, right? And the same thing right here, we can also have what? Age, and you have what? You have age, and this is what? That's its value here. So now, is this correct? No, JavaScript is going to be complaining, right? Because what? There is what? Syntax error. And it's saying that unexpected token, right? It is expecting what? A comma sign somewhere, right? On line 3, it is expecting a comma sign. So between this first key and value and the second key and value, we need a comma, right, to come in between. And on this other line here, we also need what? Another comma to come in between. So what does this mean? It means that this is what? One member of the object. This is the second member of the object. That is, this is a key and value, another key and value. And you must separate them with what? A comma, right? You must separate them with a comma. And also, we can also take this a little bit further, right? You can take this a little bit further and say, well, the key can be quoted, right? And you can say that my first name, right? My first name is what? Hey, right? Hey, right? And my last name is what? Let's say last name is what? DE, right? If this is possible for somebody to be bearing something like this. So again, when you declare the key can be a string, right? And so both the key here and the value here can be string. So another time is you would have heard me talk about this name here as a property and refer to a day as a value. It's still the same thing, whether you use key colon value or property colon value, right? They are still what? Serving the same interesting purpose, right? They are still serving the same interesting purpose. The major thing is for us to know that you can do this right here. So this is just declaring. And after we've declared, what can we do with object? So we use object to store multiple variables. You remember that the kind of declaration we had a while back, right, is just one by one. You can only declare name to be something. You can only declare height to be something. You can only declare, like just one thing. But object now is a kind of data structure that gives us the capacity to store multiple things at a go. So you can have name, right, age, and even first name and even last name together, right, inside one thing. And that thing is what you refer to as what? This object. And the two major ways to declare this is what? You're declaring it through the literal way here, or you're declaring using the object constructor right there. I believe that we all understand that. And now, when we've declared objects, the major thing that is left is that what? How do we access the values that we've declared? Right? How do we use those things that we've declared? So basically, when you want to access those things that you've declared, we have the dot notation, or we have what? You have what? The square what? The square bracket what? The square bracket, right? Notation. And what does these two things mean here? So it means that if I need to access name from the first object, I can as well do obj.name, right? And if I console.log this, right? If I wrap this with a console.log, right? If I wrap with a console.log, you see that what is logging the value. So this dot notation gives me ability to read or to access now, to access the value or to what? To modify. So it gives me access to modify, right? Give me access to modify existing, right? Modify existing property or add new. So in this situation here, I am console.login what the first member, which is what? Object dot. And the key here is what? I'm using the dot notation right there. And I can as well say, well, I don't like the fact that this person's name is just one word, right? And I can say, oh, no, this person should be what? Ade and Ade CSE right here. So and what this means is let's just use the popular word, the popular common name, right? You can use John Doe, right? So we've changed the name here, and if you go ahead here and log the name, if you log the name, you see that the name is no longer what Ade here, and the name has been what? Mutated or changed, right, to what? John Doe. And again, you can either what? Access, or you can modify, or you can add, use the dot to what? To add what? New property. So let's assume we want to add another property, and we want to give this person, say we want to give them a job, right? So we would have said that what? Obj dot what? A new what? A new what? A new property, right? A new property, right? New property. And you can say that what? It is the same thing as what? This property here. So now you can see here that what we are declaring new thing here. So in literal meaning, we can say obj dot what? Dot job, right? Our job here is that what? We are a software developer and we're trying to talk about JavaScript, and that's what we're trying to do here on the call today. So this is what so if we lock the whole of the objects again, right, for us to see, right, you would see that what we now have, what we have, how many things do we have here? We have name as a key, we have age as a key, you have first name, and you have last name, you have new prop, you have job. They are what? Keys inside of what? Our beautiful object. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I believe that should make sense to everybody that is on the call, right? So you are able to, to access the variables or the properties that you've declared inside of that object. You are also able to what? To modify the existing ones, and you're able to add new ones to that property. And the interesting thing here is that all the things that we've done here, all the things that I've done with this first object, right, can be done with this other object too as well. Everything we did with the first object can be done with the second object here. So that is, you can use the dot notation to access. So now all this operation here that we did here as well can be done with what? The square bracket notation. So what do we mean by the square bracket notation? Now, look at this situation for me. I have a situation where obj, right? Obj, and I want to access, say I want to access this first name. If I want to access the first name using the dot notation, can I access the first name with the dot notation? Can I access the first name with the dot notation? So here you see that it's not possible for us to do this, right? This will confuse our JavaScript compiler, right? We can't do this. And that is the place where the square bracket notation shines a lot, right? Yeah. Thank you so much, Inka. I really appreciate you joining. And I mean, we should talk soon, though. We should find time and talk. It's been a while. Uh, enjoy the rest of your day, bro. And so for us to be able to access this first name here, right, because there's some form of what? White space, right? White space in between this place right here. So for us to access this white space, what would have been the best way for us to access this? And that's where the square bracket notation comes in. And the square bracket notation says, well, you're going to quote the first name, right, with what? A single quote, and put it inside what? A square bracket. And when you put it inside a square bracket, it then allows us to access that property. It should allow us to access it. Why not? 27. Okay, let's just do this here. Wrap with console.log. Look at me. So I'm combining the dot notation and the square bracket notation together, which will not work. So it is us what we are going with what we are going with what the square what bracket notation. So if you're using the square bracket notation, you're using it fully. And if you're using the dot notation, you're using the dot notation fully right there. And this is a very interesting way to access properties inside of what to access properties inside of your object using the square bracket notation. So the place where the square bracket notation shines a lot is that when you have space in between the properties and key, or for example, another situation that can warrant you to use the square bracket notation is, let's assume, right, that we declare a variable to be say age is equals to what? String age. So if you want to pass age now, the age variable, right? This age variable on line 28, if you want to pass the age variable on line 28, so you cannot do object.age. That's not going to work, right? That's not going to work because let's say I'm not calling this age. Let's say I want to call this years old. So let's say I want to say years old, and I can just change this to what? Years what? Old. And if we log this, you see that the moment we try to log this, we will get a good undefined, because the dot notation cannot work here. So if we want to make this years old work, because this years old is a variable, right? The right way to have made it work would have been what? To do what? Years old. And you see that it's able to access, right, our what? Our 99 inside of what? The object. And that is the beauty of what? Object. And that's at the specific points where using the square bracket notation sort of helps us in lots of ways to access the properties inside of our what objects, right? And another interesting thing that we are able to do right there is that yeah, we are able to just do lots of amazing things here. So another interesting thing that we can also think about is, for example, let's say you want to compute something. We want to computed key or computed property or key, right? So for example, now you know that if we join, let's look at this years old again, right? Let's say you want to join this first and this name together programmatically. So first is a variable and name is a variable, right? So I could say that let value what? Value one equals to what? First. And value 2 equals to name. And it will be very interesting and possible for us to now say that if we want to create, or if we want to still access what? Obj here, you want to do something like this and you want to do something like this. That is, what you're saying here is that what is the value of value 1 first? What is value of what? This, then concatenate them together, right, and give us what? The value of what is inside of this place, right? And you know we can use this, right? We can use this same example here to create another new object. For example, let's say we want to create a new object. Const what? We can say computed object equals to what? Open this literal, and so we can we could have done something like this, right? and do something like this. So yeah, when we're teaching strings declaration, we said you could declare your string, right, with what? Something like a single quote, right? First, right? So we could declare first name, right? And you can say first name is what? John, right? John. And well, let's say we want to replace this with this variable and this variable. And we change the backtick and we turn this into a variable. And we're saying that, well, this is going to now be what value one. And JavaScript is saying, well, I don't know what you're saying, right? Because this is something programmatic, like this is something that your compiler really needs to understand. So, but if you want your compiler to process this and compute the result of this, so you have to put this in a square bracket. And the moment you do that, right, we can then what console.log computed properties. So you can see that what right now our compiler is aware of what this first space name, right? Because we are putting it within the square bracket. It is now a compute. So the computer, right, the compiler, your JavaScript just-in-time compiler is going to compile this down. And when it compiles this down, it gives us what this first name, and that is what is used right there. So that is the major thing right there. Any questions so far? Anybody has any question? Anybody has any concern? Any question? Any concern? Samuel, good to see you. How are you catching up with your JavaScript? I thought you were trying to catch up with our Node.js. Uh, uh, you were trying to catch up with our Node.js class, right? Yeah. Have you been able to catch up with the Next.js? Okay. That's lovely. Um, okay. That's great. That's great. So that's great. We're able to log this computed property. Again, remember having issues creating Next.js on my computer. That's interesting. What are the issues? You can maybe when we talk about Next.js, tomorrow, if you're able to join, you can just raise some of those issues. And if I'm able to assist you with those issues so that you can. But another thing I would advise you is to use Stack Blitz. Stack Blitz really works so well. Stack Blitz even runs so fast than I think. Recently, I've been thinking that Stack Blitz is most likely faster than Stack Blitz is actually faster than my local computer. I don't know how they are able to do that. But I've been experiencing. I don't know whether Stanley has noticed it or anybody has noticed that Stack Bliss is actually very fast than your normal local when you run local host on your computer, and that's really crazy because that's like a big market for them. But I know that one thing that they are doing is that they are streaming down, they are removing all the unused object properties that you have in your JavaScript. So what they are doing is when if you run like a performance, let's say you run like a performance check on your computer, right, on some code that you've written, and you console.log something inside of your Stack Blitz, you will notice that Stack Blitz does not have some of the other default properties that you expect your DOM object to have, most especially when you're working with DOM. And it's because they are removing them. So if you're not using those properties, they are removing them, because what makes your JavaScript code to be bloated is because of all those unused object properties. And when you look at a DOM, let's say you do a query selector or something now in your JavaScript, you will notice that you have so many key and so many object keys or so many object properties that you're not even using or that you don't even know about, right? And some of these objects can be nested, right? They can be nested to another object, and they now create like chains of long chains of useless things that you're not using, right, in your program or in your so. But Stack Blitz is trimming down. They are cleaning those objects out, and they are only leaving the ones that you're using within your code. I don't know how they are doing that, right? But it's, I mean, it's something cool. I can definitely do that, but I don't know how they are doing it inside a whole project. That's what I don't know. I don't know how they are able to do that, achieve that beautiful thing inside a big project. So just try it whenever you're inside Stack Blitz, any of your project. Just console the log a particular thing, a DOM, most especially DOM, and see. You will see that the DOM only contains the exact thing that you need, and that way it makes your code run so fast. And that's the market that they are selling. They are selling that you can really run faster on Stack Blitz compared to your local. I don't know how, but that's like the business idea that they're trying to sell. And I mean, they have customers and companies are paying. And much more, they have some other features that they're also selling as well. Some other cool features that they're selling. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about Stack Blitz, stackblitz.com. You can go to stackblitz.com, right? Stackblitz.com. They have like amazing stuff that they are doing there. Amazing stuff, right? Um, I'm thinking of paying for the service, but I've not yet decided whether I should pay for them or not. But they have some nice stuff that they are doing. So part of the features is just you're just able to create and set up something so fast, right? You're able to run projects. You're able to run projects easily right there. And so it allows you to do a lot of uh, why is it taking forever? I don't know why it's taking forever to get into GitHub. For some reason I'm not getting the notification. So this passkey, I don't know if anybody has been I've been trying passkey recently. Passkey is it's another way to authenticate instead of using two-factor authentication. So you kind of like use your existing device to carry out authentication. So passkey is another very cool way to just log in into all the different accounts that you have. One of these days, I can think about implementing passkey too. We can have like a stream where we just try to implement passkey. It's not gonna work. I don't know why it's not working. We can use. I think I have the GitHub mobile app that we can use. Um, so we're able to. So we're able to sign into my StackBlitz account where we have different things that you can set up any project. You can just come in here and set up all these kind of projects here, whether it is a front end, back end, full stack, documents, whether it is a slide presentation. I mean, it's just amazing that you're able to set up all these kind of things here, and they have all these cool things here. Trace.js, for animations, remotion, green sock. I mean, one of these days I'll just talk about how cool really Stack Blitz is. Right, these guys are just like so cool, so cool. And if you want to do mobile and VR stuff as well, right? And if you want to do like vanilla Node.js, Vitest, you just want to run something very fast. It's just, I feel like they are the fastest way to just get something up and running, right? If you want to really get something up and running, right? Stackblaze is just like the easiest and the coolest way to get something up and running very fast. And most of the stuff I've always done is around React, basically, but you can also try it out for Node.js, right? Yeah, they have all these cool things that you can do here, most especially this creative part here, because just instead of you learn when you're trying to learn something, you just want to quickly set up. You don't like when you're learning something, you just need a way to quickly start something, right? And this is the best way to just quickly get it here. I have lots of stuff here that I do use, recent stuff that I've created, and yeah, a lot of them here that I've created here that you can always create new projects, and get started. Yeah. So back to our JavaScript talk. We're talking about objects, and I was just showing us how a couple of other stuffs work in objects. So here I left off at this computed property here. That is, when you make a key or a property and you put it in a square bracket, your JavaScript compiler can evaluate that thing. And when it evaluates it, the result of the evaluation is what will. So here you can put something like we can do 2 plus 2, right? 2 plus 2, right? You can do 2 plus 2, right? You can see that the result of 2 plus 2 is 22. And if you want to do a normal mathematical 2 plus 2, right, you can do 2 plus 2, and you can see the result is 4. And you can see here. So note here that this 4 here would not be like it's not a 4 that it will be here, but it will be the string of 4 that will be here, because the key and the properties of objects can only be two things. It can only be a string or what? It can only be a string or a symbol. The key or property of what? Of an object that you're declaring in JavaScript can only be two things. It must either be what? A string, or what? A property, a symbol. A symbol. It must either be string or what? A symbol, right there. And yeah, that is that about that. We are also able to do so here you're also able to do multiple things here. You're able to do dot repeat, right? You're able to do dot repeat, right, 2 times here. So because this is now a JavaScript operation here, right here. So you're able to pass this to a JavaScript operation, and much more, right? We're able to just pass, you're able to not only as we store here, we can store a property column value. We can also go ahead and store maybe sum to be what? A function, right? You can store a function inside of what? An object, right? So you can store a function inside a function. For those who don't know what functions are, we've talked about functions. You can just get like any of the previous episode where I talked about functions. So you can see here that we have sum, and it is what? The sum is the key, and this is the value. So we are also able to store other data structures, right, that your JavaScript support, that you're able to store an array as well. We're able to store an array. So anytime you see this square bracket, that's what you call an array right there. And you notice that the order in which objects are stored, right? You see that this is the object order in which I store them, but you see the order in which they are displayed. that order is referred to as what? Like your alphabetical order, right? The alphabetical order, because you see that 4 comes first, right? But you can see that the A, right, the ARR follows, right, and then you have the sum. So it tries to maintain the alphabetical order when it displays the result of what? When you're displaying the result of what is inside of the object that way. um what else are we supposed to talk about, right? So now, the interesting thing here is that we can take this a little bit further, right, by creating a function, right? A function that what? That makes what? That helps us to make what? To make objects. So we can say function what? I mean, my copilot is listening to what I'm doing. So we can say function what? Make what? Make objects. And you can pass it what? Say we can pass it values, right? You can pass values, and we want to we want to do something like this. So you're able to we're able to accept everything here. Don't let me go too advanced. This is a little bit too advanced here. But let's assume that we want to make a object that only contains name and age. Let's say we want to just make something that takes name and age. So you want to return, right? You want to return. So you want to first do something like this. It's either you come here and create what? Created what object will be what? Created object will be what? Name colon name, right? Age colon age. So this name is the string here, and this what? This name is the value, the JavaScript variable that is being passed. And then in a function, what is the major thing in a function? You return the object. So we can shorten this process, right, by returning what? Just returning what? Something like this. Returning name colon name and age colon age. And another interesting thing is with object shorthand properties, you can just return just what? With something we call object shorthand properties. So what is object shorthand properties? Object shorthand properties, right, means that what? We have what? Shorthand Shorthand property means that instead of us doing what? Instead of us doing name colon what? Name, right? We are going to just use what? You're going to use what? What are we going to use? We are going to use ordinary name, comma, age, right? Because your JavaScript engine knows that this name is a JavaScript variable, so it can make it to be what? Name colon name, right there. So and that is what something I was still going to talk about later on, right? Object shorthand properties, right? Yeah. And so if we want to test this function, right, and if we want to test this function, we can use this function to create what? Let's say you want to create my name is Ojo, right? Ojo or Ojo, right? You can say name make object, right? Ojo, and my age. So this is the function make object, right? And you are passing this string here for the name. Let's call this to be what? Let's use my full name, right? So my full name in Yoruba is Oluwashitemi Ojo, right? And my age is 20, right there. And so if I console.log object the OJ, right, this object here, Ojo object here, you have what? Name, and you have what? This age right there. And I can also do another one. Let's say I want to make something for Stanley, right? I can say Stanley is equals to what? Make object Stanley is equals to 20. And in that way we are able to make what? Multiple objects right there. And we can console.log what? Stanley, and you can see that, oh, this is the object here. So this function helps us to make object. And another brilliant thing that we're also able to do, right, is that we can you can have default, right? We can set some default values. So for example here we can say what this will be what? Default. And default is just let's say default value. So you see that the moment I added default value right here to my Ojo, right, and to the Stanley object that I have, they both have what? This default. right? Because they are being passed along right there, and that is something beautiful. Another thing that we're also able to do, right, is that we are able to um we can write we can check, right? You can check, right? check check if property exists inside of an object. And what we use to do that is that, well, we use the in keyword, right, or the in operator. So if I console.log is name inside of what? Ojo, right? Or Ojo, that is going to be true, right? Is name inside of Ojo, and that is going to give us what? True. So name is inside of Ojo, right? It is true. So in is checking that, do I have this name as a what? A key or a property inside of what? Ojo, right? And it's able to declare back to me true, right? It's able to tell me what? True. And let's say I want to ask for maybe job. Do I have job inside? No. You can see that because I don't have job inside, it's saying, oh, job is false, right? Because job does not exist inside of this place. And that is what option a way to what to check. So we can also write a function called check, right? We can say a function called check, right? And we want to check for property, right? Property inside of what? Inside of the object. So you pass, the first thing to pass is the object, and the property you want to what? Check. And to write this, we are just going to be returning something called what? Check prop in what? In an object. And we're able to just do something like this: console.log, right? You can check this, and this is true. So we want to check job here. You can see it is false. But what if we want to? Can anybody think about it? If we want to write this, modify this function and say function what? Check what? Check properties. So you just know you want to check more than one property now, right? You want to check more than one properties. So if we want to check more than one properties, right? We could have, this is a little bit advanced, right? Because we've not done something that looks like this. But what would have done is that we want to check, there is a way to access all the properties inside of an object. That is, you want to check, there is the for in loop. There's something we call the for in what loop. That is, you want to do something like this for what? For open your bracket here and you open the curly braces here. So inside of this place, you want to do for what? For key, right? Let key in what? In object, right? Key in object. And if you console.log what? Key. So if we console.log key, let's look at what we have. So how do we call this now? So we want to check, we want to do check properties, right? Check properties. I want to check whether there is name, and there is age inside Ojo, right? So inside Ojo right here, I want to check whether we have what? Name. And I want to check whether we have what? Age. So here would have been what? If we console.log this, okay, I'm going to be getting an error because I don't have this. It is obj. So you can see that as we are doing the for in loop and you're logging the key, we are getting name, age, and default. That is, it is listing the keys that we have inside of. So if you want to check, since we have these properties here, right, you can also console.log the properties. Console.log. I could just do this properties, right? And if I do properties here, you can see that what the properties here is an array of what? Is an array, right? Is an array of name and array of name and age. So how will I check now? What can we do to check? So we just want to check, right? So this is going to log. So you want to check. We need a way to. How do we write this function now? So say we want to check. How can I write this function? Anybody has any idea of how to get to write this function? Hmm. So um, maybe we should not stress too much, right? Because if I am checking, or better still, instead of using the for in allow us to loop only through objects. But the for off, right? The for off. So if we change this in to off, it's not going to work for objects, but it will work for arrays, right? It will work for prop. So it is listing out what all the props that we have. We have what name and age. So you want to check. So we now want to check if what we want to check if key in what if key in obj, right? We want to check if key in obj, that is if there is name inside obj, right? You want to return what? Return. You can console.log this, right? And you want to return true, and return true, and else, right? You want to return maybe false, and you want to return a false. Should we do that, or let's just keep it simple, right? Let's keep it simple. So this is a function that will always log what? True. But let's say I'm checking for name and age, whether they exist inside of what? This obj, right? This ojo object. So it can see that there is name and age. But let's say I check for name and job. Name and job. It is still throwing true, right? And we don't want this to throw true because, right, the major thing would have been the major thing would have been we don't want this to throw true. So I would have just said return false here. Or better still, I still need the else to come in. So the moment we have one else, right? The moment you have one false here, or better still, that's interesting. If if key, the only key is checking. Okay. If key is not an object, that is, if we have job, How many times does it go into this loop? It's not touching this line 79 and it's not touching line 76. It's not touching line 79. It's not touching line 6. That's interesting. What can I do to make sure it touches those things? So if key in object name exists, right? And if it concludes, say I don't return, right? Because we're not done yet. We're not done yet. But here yeah, would have been maybe return something like true. Yeah. So if it goes through all of these here, return this. Yeah, I think it will be false here now. But if we put age here, right, it will return true. Yes, I think I got something to work. I'm not sure whether this is really. So we want to check for job, right? The moment we put job, right, it is checking whether there is name and job inside of this object. And so since you only have name, age, and default, it is returning what? False. But if we check for name and default, right? Name and default. And let's check on name and default. Yeah, both of them are true because they exist inside of what. So basically, yeah, it's working. So for if you're just seeing this for the first time, right, I know that this is a bit much for anybody to learn at first, but this is the console. This is a for off loop, right, which works with array. It works with arrays, right? I think we can check. We can even pass only one thing here. Say we pass only job here. Let's say we pass only job here, and this should give us what? A beautiful false, right? It should give us a beautiful false right there. So basically, what we are doing is what you're checking again. We are checking whether properties, this array of properties, exist inside of what? Inside of this object. And it's a cool trick, right? It's a cool trick. Most of the time, we usually need something like this when we are writing code, right? We usually need things like this when you're writing code. So we wrote the check property for one, right? And we wrote the other one, which is what? Check properties, right? So again, the goal of those functions is to just help us to check. And this is the last thing, that the last cool function that we're going to be writing here is what? A function that is very what? So our objects, they allow us to also delete something out of what? Delete property from an object. So I can delete, you can use the delete keyword to delete, right? And if you do this and you console.log Joe, right, you see that what? You don't have default anymore there. So we can also delete again from Stanley. I think we have Stanley, dot default as well, and we can console.log Stanley. So you can see that the defaults have been removed. So we can write a function, right? Call what? We can write a function that that talks about we can write a function, right, that talks about, that helps us to remove. So we can say a function, right? A function remove helps us to what? So this function here will delete, right, whatever prop you pass here, right? And it will delete it away. And if you want to remove more than one, right, you can say what? Let's say if you remove from age now and you ask for what? So you see that as we delete again, you delete something from, you delete the age from this object here. We have what object? You have this here. So this is, I think we can also use this function for let's say we want to do remove function, we want to say function remove multiple, right? So if we want to remove multiple, right, this would also work. So let's say for Stanley, we want to remove multiple, and you want to remove Stanley, and we want to remove the age, and what again? Remove the age and the name. So and yeah, what else do we have? I think Stanley is going to be empty, right? Because we have removed what? The name, the age, right? And another thing is the very interesting thing. Instead of us calling the delete here, we can call the other function that we wrote there. We can call our remove, right? And call our remove and pass what? Object and key. And it still works perfectly fine. I mean, look at the thing is, we are the ones writing JavaScript, and you can compose, right? You see that we're just able to compose and create beautiful magic, right? It's just beautiful things there. You're just able to compose, create, adjust it just to meet your need or your requirement, as the case may be. And again, you're just able to what? To create stuff as you wish right there, because you're able to just just play around with JavaScript. And because I find that you need to remove multiple properties in an object a lot. We sometimes run into issues like this when you're writing code, right? Different projects that you're trying to do. So you just want to have them as utilities inside your utility folder, right? As tools that you just write the function once and you have it there, and you're just able to remove or do whatever you want to do right there. And what else can an object do? What else can we do with an object? What else can be done with an object? I think those are like the major things that you can do with an object. You can do CRUD, right? You call it CRUD, right? You're able to create, right? You're able to read, you're able to update, you're able to delete, right? It's and we also use the opportunity to mention the for in loop, right? The for in loop allows us to loop through objects, right? While the for off loop allows us to loop through arrays, or better still, the for off allows us to loop through iterables, right? Iterables. When I say iterables, iterable is an advanced word, right? For example, this is not part of what I'm teaching today, but say we declare a string to be name equals to a day, right? You can do what? You can do a for off loop. Let what? Character in this here, and the for off allows you to loop through each character inside of this name. And that's the ability of the for off loop, right? The for off loop is very powerful, right? One of the most powerful thing in JavaScript is that for off loop. The for off loop is crazy powerful because it allows you to just walk through anything that is an iterator, anything. And even it allows us to walk through async iterators. So that's a little bit advanced, but when I mean async iterators, or what I mean by async iterators is that for some of my students that are a little bit advanced and can understand, um, we used for off instead of for in the remove multiple. Yes, the reason why we use the for off is because you notice that I am just doing the for in on the prop. And you know that the prop, I'm always passing my prop as an array, if you have noticed. The multiple things that we want to remove, we're always passing it as an array. So I'm not necessarily looping through the object, but I am looping through this array, right? That's like like I solved the problem in like a different approach. So the normal approach, you would have thought that I want to maybe do a for in through my object and be checking whether that property existed, but no, I didn't do that. So I'm just doing the for off on my what? On my prop that I'm passing, and I am now checking that, oh, please remove this particular prop from this object, remove this particular prop from this object. So that is the approach that I did there. For some of my students that are advanced, I want to play on your intelligence a little bit. I'm not sure whether you can cope with this. For those who are on the call, I don't know whether Abdul Qadir is on the call, or Stanley, a couple of other persons that are my regular students. Um, if we, I know that this is a little bit advanced, but just bear with me a little bit. Um, um, how do I do this? I don't want to cause too much trouble. I literally don't want to cause too much trouble. Uh, can anybody remember that I have talked about generators? Have you heard the word generators before? Have you heard the word generators before? A function that has star in front is something you call generators. I think I did mention them a little bit. And we use generators to, you use your generator to create, what do we use generator to create again? We use your generator to create, we use our generator to create, um, we use our generators to create as iterators, right? But the major thing is they can create, maybe even async iterators. So in this situation here, we have id to be equals to 0, and we have while true, we want you to yield plus plus plus. To be honest with you, this is a very dangerous function, because this is a very dangerous generator, right? Because what this means is this is going to say something like, once it creates this generator right here, you can then do something like this, and you can call it again, and you can call it again, and you can call it again, and you can keep calling it again. But the thing here is that nobody knows when this operation is going to stop. Do we know when this is going to stop? We don't, right? We don't know when it's going to stop. Like, it's a very dangerous, because this while true is an infinite loop here. So if I want to destroy my computer now and I want my computer to break, I would just try to I would try to convert this to what? Convert this generator to an array, and my computer is going to break, because my computer is going to tell me that, well, when I try to convert this into an array, right, I don't understand what is going on. I think ID generator. And now my computer is going to start acting up. My computer will start acting up because this ID generators is too large. It's a large data set that my computer can never understand where it's going to stop. So I had better stop it as fast as possible, or else my computer will keep acting up. And that is to show you that sometimes generators are just crazy powerful, right there. But the beautiful thing about generators is that you will not run into trouble by just doing dot value, dot value, dot value, dot value, right? You won't run into any trouble there. But the moment I try to convert this ID generator into if I try to convert it into an array, then that's when I have problem. And let's say I have something like this. Look at this now. Let array of what? Promise. So I have promise dot what? Promise dot resolve one, promise dot resolve two. And I want to yield while I would have loved to just yield each one of them. So here I want to yield each member of this promise here. And you can see that as I am asking for each of these value, it is giving me a promise. But if I try to await each one of them, I'm a little bit advanced, right? This is a little bit advanced. Never mind. If I try to do an await here, okay. can I take the result into a variable? Let's see if I can take the result into a variable and await it later to give me the result there. So let's do this. I'm just trying to, I want to use this to explain something. Let P equals to this, and P is a promise. And inside of that promise, what we have is what? Because if we console the log P, P is what? P is a promise. This P here, if you log this P is a promise. P is a promise. But if you want this promise to maybe give you a value, I think we should be able to do something like this. Can I await this? I'm not sure whether I can do this though. No, don't do it this way. I know that await is the await is going to mess things up. So if I do a dot then, I know the dot then is going to work, right? The dot then should log, the dot then should log 1. Yeah, it's going to log 1. And you would probably see, yeah, it's going to log 1. So the major thing is, if this is being passed to dot then here, right? You can see that inside of this data is 1. Then I'm console.logging this. So imagine that I want to do this and convert everything to an array now. So let's say I want to convert everything P array equals to what? P array equals to array dot what? Array dot from this. And if you log this, so when you log this now, you see that we have array of promises, right? We have array of beautiful promises. So, and the way to have maybe to quickly play around this would have been what? To use what? Array.from async. Array.from async. From async. Is it because of my Node.js version? I think, what version of Node.js am I running? Let's do this. Stop Coca. Stop current. And in my terminal, I'm just going to switch. I'm going to switch node. What node version am I on? Node version 21. That's version 21. That should support from async though. Current. So if it is using this here, I think there's a problem. Why is it not logging? Is my from async, array.from async not correct? It's saying from async is not a function. Am I using from async as a function? Am I using from async as a function? No, what am I doing? Seems I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And since if I don't know what I'm doing anymore as a developer, we better go to MDN MDN array dot what? Array dot from async. So array dot from async takes a generator, right? Okay. Basically, I see what they want me to do there. So basically, what they want me to do there is that it wants me to what? To pass this here, because this ID generators dot then, right? Uh, based on what I saw here, right? Based on what I saw here, the async are terrible, right? And okay, we're able to hmm, again. I think I terrible. That's a function. Okay. Oh, I think I've seen what I'm missing there. So you're only passing the generate, you're only passing the generate here, the generator here. And you can then do dot then, and you can say each here will be what? Pass to something like say console.log each. You keep saying array dot from async is not a function. Am I using it like a function? Or I guess that the way I'm declaring the promise, I could just do something like this. Let's just copy this. Maybe okay. I could just do this here. Give me give me 3 members or 4 members, and set this up, right? And yield high. Okay, yield high. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn something new here. Mm, okay, I know what I've been missing. So this async here is what I've been missing here. And if we run this, I'm not supposed to have called this. So this is generate ID, right? And this generate ID, I'm still getting the same error. That's interesting. From async is not a function. Why am I getting this error? Are you for real? Ah, except if from async is not working here in this node version here. That's the only thing that can be the excuse here. Or better still, Well, I would try to I'll try to play. I think I was trying to. So I wanted to show that the idea of what I was trying to show is that your for off, the for off loop allows you to await, right? You can do something like this in a for off loop. The for off loop is very powerful, right? In the sense that you can do a for await, and then you can do something like this, for off, something like this. So you can do something like this. So if you have what, say we have, if we have iterables here that are, if you have something that is maybe promise, new promise, promise, new promise. Um, so if you have something like this, new promise, and let's say we just have maybe resolve. Let's just do R. I can do resolve one, something like this. So if we have promises here that we are passing, so yeah, your yeah, I think this should be possible here. So this is a promise here, right? And you can, it means that what I'm trying to say in essence is that you can, if it is an asynchronous operation. I saw this somewhere yesterday. I can't remember where I saw this yesterday though. But let me try to check. I think I was working with bond.glob. I think I was working with bond.glob. There's the glob. Where's the glob API in Bond? I was trying to work with glob. There's a glob API. Let's just do Bond glob API. So the major thing there is that it allows you to, it allows us to do something like this. So this is the major operation I was trying to, like the for off loop is, as much as you want to do the for off loop. So if this particular operation here, it is scanning through something, but when it scans, it returns promises of all of the files in this directory. So if you want to now await, as you are looping through each one of them, you want to await the result, right? So for off allows you to, you can use your await with your for off. Basically, that's what I'm trying to, like, that's the major thing I was trying to explain. That you can use await with your for what, with your for off. Basically, yeah, that's what I was trying to point at there. Mm. So today, right, with objects, right, we've been able to create, right, we've been able to read, we've been able to update, we've been able to what, delete. That's the major operation I've been able to achieve with object. Again, when I talk about that, like in sense of what we're able to do CRUD, right? That is CRUD operations on object, right? On object, we're able to do that. We're able to create new objects, we're able to read, that is, you're able to extract value. When you're reading either with your dot notation or your square bracket notation. Another thing that we're able to do is we're able to update. You can update that, and also you can update using what the square bracket notation, or you can use what your dot notation, and you can also delete using the delete keyword. And also we can check if something exists in something, right? You can use the in keyword to check if a particular key exists in the object. And we also talked about shorthand. Let me emphasize on this shorthand property value. Do you understand the shorthand property value, Stanley? Right, where I talked about the shorthand property. So instead of doing name colon name, right, you replace it with name. That is shorthand property. That is, instead of you using the two, name colon name, right, you're just going to pick one. That is because that one is short, and that's why you call it what, object shorthand property. That is, object allows you to just pass what, just one. right? And the object knows that what you are referring to here is what you're referring to, what name colon name there. And it's a very cool trick as well to do. And also we're also able to what to create what computed keys. This is a computed key here, that is the result of this 2 plus 2 that becomes the key that we are going to use in our work. And another thing that we also talked about today is that we talked about what else did we talk about? We talked about these beautiful functions: remove multiple, right? Check property or check properties, right? They're just cool functions that we wrote there that we are able to that we're able to use around there. So, going forward, we're going to talk more about objects have some major methods, right? It has some major methods, right? And we can also look at the major methods that we have. Yeah, they're using Next.js. I believe they should be using Next.js. They're using Next. Are they using Next? No, they're not using Next. I thought they were using Next. They're not using Next, but they're using Tailwind. They're not using Next, but they're using Tailwind. Hmm. And they're using Shaktra UI. How can one create user detail using object? How do you mean user detail, Samuel? How do you mean user detail? Mm, mm. How do you mean? How can one create user detail using object? Hmm. Can you speak clearly? Hmm. Like filling a form and user submit buttons and fire a create. Ah, I mean, it's still, I feel like it's still the same process, right? So if a user fill a form, right, you get each of the value of the input, right? You get each of the value of the input. So from the input, first input, you get a value, right? And when you get the value, you just go ahead and literally use any method from whether you want to create it using this approach here or you want to use this approach. You can use any method here. So for example, what you're saying is that so say we have input, you have input like you have name input in your HTML, and you have what age input, and you have maybe another job. So what it means is when you fire the submit, right? When you fire the submit. So you just want to do something like this. You want to do something like you want to get each of those values, right, as you fire the submit, and then you just want to do a let, right, saved value saved equals to, just open curly bracket here and say name equals to what, maybe form, or maybe form, yeah, maybe something like form dot what, form dot the name dot value, form dot the name dot value, right? And you want to do something like this, and you want to do something like this as well, and you want to do something like this, and when you're done, right, you want to maybe send the data to API, send data to API, or send it to the database, to API endpoint or database. I don't know whether that answers your question, right? I mean, when you accept all the values, like just accept it and just put it inside the literal object declaration and just use it wherever you want to use it. I don't know if I mean, your question is still a little bit verbose, but this is the best I feel I can answer it. Like filling a form and the user buttons fire a create object. I mean, yeah, when somebody fires the submit, You just gather all the information and put them inside the object and send it to wherever you want to send it to. So whether you're sending it to an API or you're sending it to a database, right, wherever you want to send it to, that would have been good for you to send it to that place. So basically, if we go inside, the reason why I wanted us to go inside, to come in to this place here is to come here and come to the console here. So here we are able to they're using GraphQL. Okay, that's good. So we're able to log something like objects here, and so you can say console.dir, right, object in itself, and this is just the object constructor. But you can see that here we are showing the list of all the things that our object has. We are showing the list of all the methods that the object constructor has access to, right? You have access to something you call object.assign, right? Object.create, object.define. You have object.define property, right? Object.entries, object.freeze, object.from entries, object.get own property descriptor, object.get own property descriptors, object.get property names, and object.get property symbol, object.get prototype of, object.group by, object.asOwn, object.is, right? Object.is extensible, object.is frozen, and object.is sealed, object.keys, and we also have object.prevent prevent extension. I've not used this before, but I know that it's possible. Then we have the object.seal, and we have the object.set prototype of. Then we have the object.values. And they also inherit from, so they have something called their own scope. They don't have any scope. They have prototypes, and they are inheriting from what I think. Which prototype are they inheriting from here? They're inheriting from the function prototype, I think. This is a function prototype. The function prototype is the one that has this apply, bind, call, and to string and all this other thing. And this would also be inheriting from another object, right? And this final object will be inheriting from null. Yeah, that is so basically. So the major thing there is that we have lots of methods, right, and properties that our object is able to do. Also, if we want to see this in MDN, right, we are able to do let's go to another tab. So MDN, right, object constructor. So you are able to do this on so we have the object constructors. So these are the major things here for the object constructors, right? And it has the constructor itself, it has some properties, right? And it has methods. And you can see all the things that we listed out there. We have the assign, the create, the define, right? You have the define properties, you have the entries, the from entries, the freeze, everything we just saw now, right? This is everything here that we saw here. So these are beautiful. They are beautiful things that the object can do. Another way to create object that I did not mention, right, in today's teaching is that you are able to also create an object using the object.create in itself. So I can take this and duplicate this, and I can call this what? Object3. Object3, and I can do, instead of using new constructor here, I can do object.create. And when you do object.create, I think it expects me to pass. Yeah, I think this works as well. And I can duplicate this. There's just a lot of beautiful things here. You can see that object.3, the object.create is also working as well, right? So you can use the object constructor, the new keyword here, or you're using this static method called object.create, or you're using the object literal right there. And I think there are other interesting ways to create. That is, we can use object.define property to also create. I think so. Okay, it doesn't create, it only modifies, right? It doesn't create, it only modifies, right? So yeah, there are cool stuff. There are very cool things here that our object has the capacity to do, right? Different cool stuff that you can do with your objects. Very cool stuff that we're able to do, all right, with object. So I mean, I'm going to be, pausing the whole thing here, and next week, I'm going to dive deeper into all of these methods and these properties. We're going to understand how to use it more, right? How do we use object.define property? How do we use object.assign? How do we use object.create? How do we use object.entries? How do we use object.freeze, right? How do we use them? And how do we get, it to we're also going to be looking at copying, right? Our ability to copy stuff, right, from an object, right? And understanding the behavior of object, internal behavior of object, because object, they are references, right? They are kind of primitives that when you copy them, they'll reach, like, if you mutate one of the copies, it will affect everybody. I don't know, I'm looking for a very good way to explain that. So if let's say we have this object here, right? And you create a new one and say copy, and you say copy is equals to object. And if you change copy, say you change copy, no, let's just change copy dot name to be what? What is the value of name? The value of name here is what, are they? But if we say the value of name here is now, are they copied, right? You notice that if you console.log obj, right, it has affected, right? Now, our name is now what? Are they copied? Whereas we only changed the name of what? The copy. You didn't touch this one. You didn't change the name of this. How come the name of this main one has changed? And that's to tell you that objects are created as what? References. That is, so anywhere their copy is existing, that is not a clean copy, that is not a deep copy, it will always mutate and affect it there. So I'm going to be talking about that later on, right? And that's what I'm going to talk about like next Friday. And yeah, we'll do a little bit about garbage collection, right? And we're also going to do a little bit about the this, right? What is this stands for? And eventually I'll talk about this constructor, this keyword here. And I'm also going to talk about optional chaining, and I'll talk about symbols, right? React uses symbols a lot. I think by now we should know that React uses symbol, right, for creating their objects, or most especially when you're creating components. So yeah, that will be all for today. Thank you for joining the stream, and that will be all. So tomorrow, Saturday, hopefully we can continue the Next.js and tidy up our Next.js episode right there. See you guys later tomorrow.